Welcome back to Cowboy Ironheart, the channel where tonight we bring you the story of 6 words said quietly over a coffee cup on an ordinary morning. 6 words that were not organized around the impression they would make and were not arranged for the significant occasion, and were not performed in any available form but were simply the most honest available statement of the most significant available interior fact said by a woman who had finally found the sufficient interior access to say it in the plain honest form. Tonight we travel to the small Kansas Territory farming community of Drystone Creek in the autumn of 1882, where Sera Calloway had been learning to hold the things she loved at the careful, sustainable distance of someone who had learned through the accumulated pattern of the available years that the things she loved had a way of leaving. She said it on a Thursday morning. She said it quietly, over her coffee, in the specific quality of the before version's quiet directness that was the form available to her on the mornings when the genuine interior had the access to the genuine form. She said that he was the only one who stayed. She said it to his profile because he was looking at the window in the Kansas Territory. October morning was outside the window, and she said it in the form of the honest, quiet communication, rather than the announcement of the significant thing. And he set down his coffee cup. Not dramatically, and not with any performance of the setting down. He set it down and he turned and he looked at her with those dark hazel eyes in the form that they were in when they were doing the most complete available work of the dark hazel eyes. And she received the looking with the hazel ones. Welcome to Cowboy Ironheart. If that already found you, leave us a word below. There is a specific interior architecture that develops in the person for whom the leaving has been the pattern of the available years. The architecture that was not the architecture of the closed person or the person who had decided not to feel the available things, but the architecture of the person who had felt everything in the complete available form and who had found through the feeling of everything in the complete available form across the sufficient available years of the leaving being the pattern. That the complete available form of the feeling was the form that produced the most complete available form of the cost when the leaving happened, and who had therefore developed through the patient, honest learning of the person who was organized around the actual interior experience rather than the managed form of the interior experience. The specific architecture of the careful distance. The careful distance was not the withholding, and it was not the closing, and it was not the performing of the genuine thing from behind the protection of the managed form. It was the genuine thing in the sustainable form, the form that was organized around the actual available reality of the leaving being the pattern, and that produced the interior architecture that could survive the leaving rather than the interior architecture that was the most available complete form of the genuine thing, and that was therefore the interior architecture that cost the most when the leaving was the available outcome. Sera Calloway had developed that interior architecture across 29 years of the available pattern. And the pattern had been the pattern in the specific available forms that the pattern took in a life. The forms of the mother who had died when Sera was 11, in the manner of the illness that was complete before the understanding of it had fully arrived. And the father who had been the reliable, available person for 6 years after the mother, and who had died in Sera's 17th year in the manner of the accident that was over quickly. And the sister Clara, who had gone east in the 22nd year, and who had written for 2 years, and had then stopped writing in the specific way that the distance and the changed available circumstances of the Eastern life produced the stopping of the writing. And then the husband. She had married Daniel Calloway when she was 24, which was the age at which the interior architecture of the careful distance had been the available architecture for the available years, and which was the age at which the interior architecture of the careful distance was most thoroughly tested by the genuine available thing. Because the genuine available thing had arrived in the form of Daniel Calloway, and Daniel Calloway had the specific quality of the person who communicated in the genuine form rather than the performed form, and who had the specific warmth of the person who was entirely interested in the actual Sera rather than the social form of the interest in the available Sera. The genuine available thing in that form had tested the interior architecture of the careful distance in the specific way that the genuine available thing tested the interior architecture of the careful distance when the genuine available thing was the form that the genuine available thing took, when it was organized around the actual person rather than the impression of the engaging with the actual person. She had not entirely maintained the careful distance with Daniel. This was the most honest available statement of the most honest available interior account of the 2 years of the marriage. The account that said she had let the careful distance become less careful, in the specific form that the careful distance became less careful when the genuine available thing was the available form across the sufficient available time. She had let the before version out in the complete available form, and the before version had been the form that was available when the careful distance was not the managing form. And the before version in the complete available form had been in the 2 years of the marriage in the specific quality of the before version available in the complete form, when the available conditions were the conditions that supported the complete form. And then Daniel had died. In the 5th month of the 3rd year of the marriage, in the specific manner of the fever that moved with the specific relentless efficiency of the fever that was the serious fever rather than the manageable fever. And that had completed itself in the available 17 days from the beginning to the end in the form of the ending, that was the ending in the complete available form. She had been 26, and the Calloway farm outside, Greystone Creek, had been hers, and the daily requirements had been hers in the specific form that they were hers when they were the sole person's responsibility form rather than the shared responsibility form. And she had addressed all of it, with the focused, quiet efficiency of someone who was doing the available thing from the position of the careful distance that had returned to the managing form, in the specific way that the careful distance returned to the managing form when the leaving had been the available outcome. Ward Callister had been in Greystone Creek for 8 years. He was the owner and operator of the Callister spread north of the Calloway farm, and he was known in Greystone Creek in the specific way that the reliable, large, quiet men were known in the small Kansas Territory communities, which was the way of the known thing that had always been there, and that communicated through the always being there, the quality of the always being there without the announcement of the always being there. He had come to the Calloway farm in the weeks after Daniel's death in the form of the adjacent spread neighbor, coming for the practical reasons that the adjacent spread neighbor came for. And he had been present in the available ways of the adjacent spread neighbor across the 3 years of the widowhood in the form of the genuine present rather than the performed present. The 3 years had produced the specific available pattern of the Ward Callister morning visits that had established themselves as the available pattern in the form that the genuine things established themselves as the available pattern when the genuine things were the genuine form across the sufficient available time, which was the form of the pattern that arrived without the arrangement, and that became the available form simply by being the genuine thing repeatedly. He came in the mornings because the adjacent spread's morning work brought him in the direction of the Calloway farm's south section, and the Calloway farm's kitchen was on the way to the south section. Deem the form that things were on the way when the person had been finding them on the way for the sufficient available time that made the finding on the way the natural available form. She had received the Ward Callister morning visits in the form that was the careful distance form across the first 2 years of the 3. The form that was the genuine warm receiving of the genuine presence at the careful sustainable distance that was the available form of the interior architecture. She had been genuinely warm and genuinely present and genuinely engaged with the actual content of the actual exchange in the mornings. And she had been all of those things at the careful distance that was the careful distance of the interior architecture of the person for whom the leaving had been the pattern and who was organized around the sustainable form rather than the complete form. The 3rd year had produced the specific available modification of the careful distance that the 3rd year produced. The modification that was not the dramatic modification of the single significant occasion, but the incremental modification of the genuine building across the sufficient available time in the form of the genuine building. The coffee mornings had built the specific available depth that the genuine exchange produced across the sufficient available time when the genuine exchange was the genuine exchange. And the depth had been building in the grain of the available mornings in the form that the genuine things built when they were in the genuine conditions, and the genuine conditions were the conditions of the consistent presence and the consistent genuine exchange, and the consistent available form of the person who was there every morning in the form of the person who was the always there rather than the form times there. She had been noticing the always there in the 3rd year in the form of the before version, having more interior access than it had had in the careful distance form. The form of the before version beginning to notice the specific quality of the always there, as the quality that was different from all the other available qualities in the available world, in the specific way that the staying was different from the leaving, which was the way of the thing was the actual opposite of the pattern, rather than simply the available thing that had not yet performed the pattern. The always there was not the available so far and therefore likely to stay. She was honest with herself about this distinction in the specific, honest accounting that was her form for the most significant available interior subjects. The always there was not the logical conclusion of the sufficient available time having passed without the leaving. Because the sufficient available time having passed without the leaving was not the evidence of the staying, but the evidence of the not yet leaving. And the not yet leaving and the staying were not the same available thing. The staying was the quality that was different from the leaving in the most fundamental available form, the quality that was organized around the actual presence rather than the provisional presence. And the staying was visible in a different quality than the not yet leaving in the specific available way, that the genuine things were visible in a different quality than the provisional forms of the genuine things. She had been in the patient honest sitting with of the distinction between the always there and the staying across the third year in the form that she sat with the most significant available interior subjects, which was the form of the patient honest sitting with rather than the managed processing toward the convenient available interpretation. The sitting with was producing the specific available understanding in the incremental honest form of the genuine understanding rather than the immediate form of the convenient conclusion. The Thursday morning of the coffee and the 6 words arrived in the form that the Thursday mornings arrived in the available pattern, which was the form of him at the kitchen door at the specific available hour, with the hat by the door, and the dark hazel eyes and the rolled flannel sleeves, and the coffee already in his cup from the pot she had made in the form of the 2-cup pot that was the form of the pot she made in the mornings that were the mornings of the available pattern. The kitchen was the kitchen in the form of the Kansas Territory October morning kitchen, which was the form of the kitchen in the early light, with the specific quality of the October that was the honest October of the serious prairie country. They were at the table in the available form of the Thursday morning pattern, with the coffee and the October outside the window and the specific quality of the morning that was the morning before the day's work began. The quality that was the most honest available quality of the morning, because it was the morning in the form that had not yet been organized around the day's requirements. She was holding the coffee cup in both hands, in the form that she held it in the mornings. The form of the warmth of the cup available in the small hands in the specific quality of the reliable available warm thing. He was looking at the October window with the dark hazel eyes in the complete present quality of the person who was entirely in the available morning rather than elsewhere while appearing to be in the available morning. She said it quietly over the coffee, in the form of the before version's honest, direct form available in the morning, in the specific context of the morning and the coffee and the reliable available warm thing and the dark hazel eyes, looking at the October window. She said he was the only one who stayed. She said it in that form. And he set down his coffee cup. He turned it. He looked at her. And they were in the kitchen, in the form of the 2 people who had just had the most significant available exchange of the 3 years. And neither of them required anything from the available morning, except the available morning being what it was. They are at the table now, friends, with the coffee and the October and the 6 words in the available space between them. If this is already the story you need to hear, please subscribe to Cowboy Ironheart, because every week we bring you the stories of the people who finally said the true thing and the people who set down their coffee cup and looked. Now let us stay in the kitchen with them and find out what the looking produced. He had set down the coffee cup in the specific form that communicated the most available significant thing in the form of the action rather than the form of the word. The form that was the action of the setting down, saying the thing that the setting down was the most complete available form of saying. The setting down communicated the specific available thing that actions communicated when the actions were organized entirely around the actual content of the actual moment, rather than the impression of the engaging with the actual moment. It communicated that the coffee was not the available priority, and that the window was not the available priority, and that the available priority was the person who had just said the 6 words in the quiet, honest form of the before version's most direct available communication. He looked at her. not in the form of the performed looking or the managed social gaze of the person who was organizing the available response while appearing to be in the looking, but in the form of the complete present looking of the person who was entirely in the looking in the specific quality of the dark hazel eyes that were the most completely present thing about him. The looking had the quality of the complete present in the form of the eyes that were doing the most significant available work of the eyes, when the eyes were in the full quality of the complete present at the most significant available moment. She received the looking with the hazel ones, not in the managed form of the careful distance architecture receiving the external information, but in the form of the before version having the interior access for the complete receiving of the complete looking. The form that was available in the specific context of the October morning and the coffee and the 6 words already having been said. The 6 words having been said was the specific available modification of the interior architecture that the saying of them had produced. The modification that was the before version, having more available access than the careful distance form had been making available, because the saying of the most significant available interior thing in the most honest available form was itself the modification of the careful distance form in the direction of the more available form. He said in the quiet plain form of the minimum available words for the maximum available content that he intended to keep staying. He said it with the dark hazel eyes in the complete present quality and with the specific quality of the person who was saying the truest available thing in the form that was the truest available form, which was the form of the plain, honest, direct statement of the available fact without the performance of the statement or the management of the impression of the saying. The minimum available words for the maximum available content were the form because they were the form that carried the full available weight of the genuine thing without the performance and without the management. The form that was available to the person who was organized entirely around the actual content of the actual available fact. She received the minimum available words with the hazel eyes and the specific quality of the receiving that was the before version receiving the most significant available communication in the form of the complete genuine receiving rather than the careful distance form of the managed receiving. The received things settled in the interior in the form that the received genuine things settled when they were received in the complete form. The form of the settling that was the genuine thing finding the genuine place in the available interior rather than being arranged into the available interior from the outside. She said nothing for the honest length of time of the complete genuine receiving of the most significant available communication. The nothing was not the managed nothing of the person who was organizing the appropriate available response, but the actual nothing of someone who was in the complete receiving and who was receiving the complete available time, without the management of the time toward any particular available form. Then she said in the before version's honest, direct form for the second most significant available communication of the Thursday morning that she had been afraid to believe that. He received it with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine understanding of the actual content of the actual thing being said. The understanding that was organized around the actual content rather than the social management of the significant disclosure. He said yes. He said it in the form of the yes that communicated the genuine understanding of the reason for the afraid to believe. The yes of someone who had been paying the right kind of attention for the 3 years and who therefore understood the afraid to believe in the complete available form of the understanding rather than the partial available form. She said, in the honest, direct form, that the afraid to believe was the afraid of the person who had been learning across the available years that the believing and the leaving were connected in the specific form that was the leaving always following the believing and the pattern that was the available pattern of the available years. He said yes. He said that the pattern of the available years was the pattern that produced the afraid to believe as the available honest interior response to the available fact of the pattern, and that the afraid to believe was the most intelligent available response to the available pattern rather than the failure of the available confidence. She received this with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most accurate available description of the most significant available interior experience from the outside in, the form that was organized around the actual experience rather than the impression of the sympathetic response to the actual experience. She said the mother, she said it in the before version's direct, honest form. Not the complete account of the 11-year-old losing the mother to the illness, but the specific available communication of the mother in the form of the most significant available word about the most significant available loss in the specific context of the Thursday morning, and the 6 words and the setting down of the coffee cup. He received the mother with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and he said nothing, because the nothing was the available right form for the receiving of the mother. And that form, she said the father, the 17th year and the accident and the specific quality of the losing of the second available primary person at the age when the primary person was the most required available form. He received the father with the same quality, she said Clara. Not the complete account of the going east and the 2 years of the letters and the stopping of the letters, but the specific available communication of Clara in the form of the most available significant word about the most available form of the leaving that was not the death leaving but the distance leaving, that produced the same available outcome in the interior. He received Clara with the dark hazel eyes in the form of the genuine reception of the specific quality of the leaving that was not the death leaving. She said Daniel. She said it last because it was the most recent, and because the most recent was the leaving that was closest in the available interior to the present moment, and that was therefore the leaving that required the most specific, careful form of the saying. He received Daniel in the form that was different from the receiving of the mother and the father and Clara. The form that acknowledged in the receiving that Daniel was the specific person whose leaving was the leaving, that had been the most specific available cost to the most recently available form of the genuine interior. He was quiet for the honest length of time of the complete, genuine receiving of all 4 of the named leavings in the form of the named things. And then he said the thing that was the most honest available response to the 4 named leavings in the form of the honest response that was organized entirely around the actual content of the actual named things. He said that every single one of those was a real loss, and that the weight of the accumulated real losses was the honest weight of the person who had been carrying them in the genuine form, and that the carrying of the genuine form of the accumulated real losses across the years was the most specific available evidence of the quality of the person who was carrying them, which was the quality of the person who did not manage the genuine form of the accumulated losses away, and who was therefore in possession of the genuine form of the interior rather than the managed form of the adequate interior. She received this with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most accurate available description of the most significant available interior experience. She said in the honest direct form that she had not said those 4 names to anyone in the 3 years. He said yes. He said he knew, she said. How did he know? He said he had been paying the right kind of attention for the 3 years, and that the right kind of attention had produced the understanding of the interior architecture of the careful distance, and what the careful distance was the architecture of. And that the understanding of what the careful distance was the architecture of had produced the understanding that the 4 names were in the interior, in the form that things were in the interior when they had not been said to the available outside, in the form of the genuine saying. She looked at him with the hazel eyes in the form that was more open than any of the available mornings of the 3 years. He looked at her with the dark hazel ones. The October kitchen was the kitchen. The coffee was the coffee. The 4 names were in the available space between them in the form that the genuinely said things were in the available space when they had been said in the genuine form. The form that was the most complete available form of the said thing, rather than the managed form. And the Thursday morning was the Thursday morning in the form of the most significant available Thursday morning of the 3 years. Not because of the announcement, and not because of the arranged occasion. Because of the 6 words said quietly over the coffee, and the setting down of the cup, and the complete present looking. And the intend to keep staying in the minimum available words of the truest available thing, and the 4 names, and the receiving God, all of it together. That was the Thursday morning, and the Thursday morning was the beginning. She woke on the Friday after the Thursday with the specific interior quality of the morning that followed the most significant available interior event of the available period. The morning that had the significant interior event in it in the form of the having happened, and that was registering the having happened in the specific quiet form of the interior that had received the most significant available thing in the complete available form, and that was in the process of the honest integration of the received thing in the patient honest way of the genuine integration. The careful distance was not the available managing form in the same degree that it had been the available managing form on the Thursday morning before the Thursday morning's exchange. Not dramatically less the managing form and not in the announced form of the modification, but specifically less in the grain of the available interior, in the form of the genuine modification of the genuine kind. She was at the kitchen table at the specific available hour with the coffee in the two-hand form when she heard the familiar quality of his boots on the porch step. And she registered the familiar quality of the boots with the specific interior quality of the person who had said the 6 words the previous morning and who was now in the morning after the 6 words had been said in the receiving of the familiar quality of the boots. The familiar quality of the boots was the same quality it had been for the available 3 years, and she was receiving it in the different quality from the 3 years available receiving. The quality that had the Thursday morning in it in the form of the Thursday morning, having modified the available receiving. He came in with the hat by the door and the rolled flannel sleeves and the dark hazel eyes in the complete present quality that was simply his quality for all available mornings. And she said good morning in the form that was the before version's form for the genuine greeting rather than the managed social form of the adequate greeting. And he said good morning back in the minimum available words of the genuine greeting. They were at the table with the coffee in the available Friday morning form, and the Kansas Territory October was outside the window, and neither of them required the Thursday morning to be addressed in the specific social management of the significant occasions aftermath, because the significant occasions aftermath in the genuine form did not require the social management, but simply the being in it in the natural available form. He said, in the quiet plain form of the practical question that was also the not practical question, in the specific way that the practical questions that carried the genuine content were both the practical question and the not practical question simultaneously. How the Southfield fence section was coming. She said it was the fence that had been the fence since the August, and that she had been addressing it in the available form of the one person's available addressing of the fence that had been the one person's available addressing for the 3 years. He said he was going to look at the Southfield fence after the coffee. She said yes. She said it in the form of the receiving the genuine provision in the genuine form rather than the managed social acknowledgement of the helpful provision. And the receiving in the genuine form rather than the managed social acknowledgement was itself the specific available evidence of the Thursday morning having produced the modification it had produced. She told him things in the days after the Thursday that she had not told the Drawstone Creek community in the 3 years, not in the arranged form of the organized disclosure occasion, but in the natural form of the genuine exchange having built toward the depth that was available when the 6 words had been said in the Thursday morning form, and when the I intend to keep staying had been said in the Thursday morning form, and when the 4 names had been received in the Thursday morning form. Because all of those things together had produced the specific available modification of the interior architecture that made the genuine telling available in the natural form. She told him about the specific quality of the 11-year-old losing the mother in the form of the specific honest account of the specific experience, rather than the managed version of the account. She told it at the Southfield fence on the Saturday when the fence work was the practical occasion, and the practical occasion was also the occasion of the genuine telling in the natural available form of the genuine exchange. He received the specific honest account of the 11-year-old losing the mother with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving of the actual thing, being told rather than the social management of the occasion of the significant disclosure. He said the thing that showed the receiving was the genuine receiving, which was not the sympathetic social management of the significant disclosure, but the specific question that was organized around the actual content of the actual experience. He asked what the mother had been like. Not as the social arrangement of the follow-up question, but as the genuine question of the person who was interested in the actual person who had died, and not only in the death of the actual person. She said in the form of the genuine answer to the genuine question. That the mother had been warm in the specific quality of the warm that was organized around the actual people. The warmth was for, rather than the impression of the warmth. And that the mother had laughed in the specific form of the before version's laugh, that was the form she recognized now as the form that was hers, when the before version had the full available access. He received the mother in the form of the person. Not the category of the lost person, but the actual specific person who had laughed in the specific form of the warm laugh that was organized around the actual people. The laugh was 4. She told him about the father in the days after the Thursday, told it at the kitchen table on the Tuesday with the coffee in the two-hand form and the Kansas Territory October outside the window. She told the specific, honest account of the 17th year and the accident and the specific quality of the 6 years after the mother and before the father, in which the father had been the reliable, available form, in the form that the father was capable of being the reliable available form in the aftermath of the mother's loss. He received the father with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and he asked the specific question that showed the receiving was the genuine receiving, which was what the father had taught her. She said, in the honest, direct form, that the father had taught her the quality of the reliable, available form before the father had become the unavailable form, and that the teaching of the quality of the reliable, available form was itself the most significant available gift the father had given her, because the knowing of the quality of the reliable, available form was the knowing that made the recognizing of it possible when it was available in the present form. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth in them, and she received his reception with the hazel ones in the form that was more open than the careful distance form. She told him about Clara in the week after the Thursday, told it in the form of the honest account of the going east and the 2 years of the letters and the stopping of the letters in the specific way that the letters stopped, which was not the dramatic stopping of the single significant event, but the gradual stopping of the letters getting shorter and less frequent, and then the letter that was the last letter without announcing itself as the last letter, and then the silence that had been the silence for 5 years. He received Clara with the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and he said in the minimum available words that the leaving that did not announce itself as the leaving was a specific form of the leaving that had its own available weight that was different from the weight of the death leaving. The weight of the person still being available in the world and the availability in the world producing the specific form of the not understanding why the silence that the death leaving did not produce. She received this with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version, receiving the most accurate available description of the specific quality of the Clara form of the leaving that she had not had the language for before the saying of it in that form. She said in the honest, direct form that he had described it exactly. He said yes. She said, how did he know the description of that specific form? He said in the minimum available words that he had been paying the right kind of attention to the available interior for the 3 years, and that the right kind of attention to the available interior for the 3 years had included the right kind of attention to the specific quality of the Clara form of the leaving in the available interior evidence. She looked at him with the hazel eyes across the kitchen table in the October morning, and she said, in the before version's direct form, for the significant available question, that the right kind of attention to the available interior for the 3 years was a significant available duration of the right kind of attention. He said yes. He said it had been. She said in the before version's specific, quick, direct form that was available when the before version had the interior access for the genuine humor, that 3 years was a patient available form of the right kind of attention. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth in them in the form of the genuine reception of the before version's specific, quick, direct humor, and she received his reception with the hazel ones in the form that was the before version's genuine humor available in the complete form. The days after the Thursday had the quality of the genuine building in the natural available form. The building that was not the arranged form of the significant occasions, but the natural form of the two people, doing the available daily things together and finding in the doing the available depth that was available when the Thursday morning had produced the 6 words and the setting down of the cup and the I intend to keep staying and the 4 names. The south fence was addressed in the genuine form. The kitchen was the kitchen in the form of the 2-cup pot. The October mornings were the October mornings, and the careful distance was less the managing form than it had been. Not yet at the complete available form of the before version, but building toward it. In the grain of the available daily things, in the form that genuine things built toward the complete form. November arrived in Dristone Creek with the specific quality of the Kansas Territory in the late autumn form. The quality that was the serious prairie country when the productive season had completed itself and the available landscape was in the form of the honest prairie, in the form that the honest prairie took when it was not performing the productivity but simply being what it was in the available season. The farm work was the serious winter preparation work, and the daily requirements had the quality of the genuine demands of the serious country in the preparation season. Sera was doing the November farm work with the quality that had been building since the Thursday morning, and that was in November the most complete available form of the quality in the 3 years and then some period since Daniel had died. The quality of the before version having more available interior access than the careful distance form had been making available. She was cooking in the before version's form in November. Not the functional minimum of the adequate provision that had been the available form for the 3 years of the managing of the farm from the position of the careful distance interior architecture, but the before version's form of the cooking that required the full quality of the interior engagement with the making and that produced the specific quality of the made thing that the full quality of the interior engagement produced. The before version's cooking was the form that had been available in the 2 years of the marriage with Daniel, and that had not been available in the 3 years of the managing of the farm from the position of the careful distance interior architecture, because the full quality of the interior engagement required the interior access that the careful distance form had been modifying toward the sustainable form rather than the complete form. He noticed the before version's cooking on the second Tuesday of November when she brought the specific dish to the fence line in the form of the practical provision of the noon meal for the practical November fence work occasion. And he said, in the minimum available words, that the dish was the most complete available form of the before version's kitchen that he had encountered in the 3 years. She received this with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the accurate observation of the before version's form being visible in the available external evidence. And she said yes, and she said it was the before version's form coming back in the grain of the November daily life in the way that the genuine modifications came back in the grain rather than on the surface. He said yes, and he said that the coming back in the grain was the most available honest form of the coming back, because the coming back in the grain was the coming back that was the genuine form rather than the performed form. The form that was available when the conditions were the conditions that allowed the coming back in the genuine form rather than the arranged form. She said yes, and she said that was the most accurate available description of the before version's form coming back in the grain. She was aware of him differently in November than she had been in the 3 years before the Thursday morning. Not in the dramatic form of the difference, but in the specific grain form of the difference that was available when the interior architecture had been modified in the genuine form rather than the managed form and She was aware of the dark hazel eyes in the mornings at the kitchen table in the form of the before version's awareness of the significant available thing rather than the careful distance form's awareness of the significant available thing, which was the form that had the full quality of the genuine reception rather than the sustainable distance form of the reception. She was aware of the large calloused hands at the fence line and at the kitchen table, and in the specific practical occasions that the November produced, as the occasions of the adjacent spread working together in the form that the November produced. And the awareness of the large calloused hands was the awareness of the before version having the interior access for the complete receiving of the available warmth of the reliable present thing, rather than the careful distance form's awareness of the available warmth at the sustainable distance. He brought her things in November in the plain available form that was his form for the providing of the significant available things without the arrangement of the occasion. He brought the specific variety of the Kansas Territory late autumn dried herb that was available in the south section of the Callister spread and that he had been noting for the 8 years of the Callister spread, and that was the specific thing he had been holding for the right available person in the right available form. He left it on the kitchen, step in the form of the thing being left in the appropriate location without the arrangement of the occasion. And she found it, and understood it, and said thank you on the next available morning at the kitchen table in the form of the before version's genuine direct gratitude, rather than the managed social acknowledgement. He said yes in the minimum available words, and she received the yes with the hazel eyes, in the form that was more open than the 3 years careful distance form. The form that was the before version's form for the receiving of the genuine thing in the genuine form. The November Saturdays had the quality of the genuine building in the natural available form. the form of the two people doing the practical Saturday work and finding in the doing the available depth of the genuine exchange. She told him the Daniel things in November. Told them at the kitchen table on the third Saturday afternoon after the practical work had been. The practical work and the noon meal had been the noon meal, and the afternoon was the available form. She told the specific honest account of the 2 years of the marriage and what the 2 years had been in the form of the before version's honest direct form for the most significant available things, about the most significant available experience. He received Daniel in the form of the person rather than the category. He asked the specific questions that showed the receiving was the genuine receiving of the actual person rather than the social management of the significant disclosure about the lost person. And she answered with the specific content of the actual person in the form that the genuine question earned as the genuine answer. She told him what Daniel had been like in the specific form of the before version's honest direct account of the actual person. And he received the actual person with the complete quality of the dark hazel eyes and the genuine patient present. She said in the before version's direct honest form that the 2 years of the marriage had been the 2 years when the careful distance form had been less the managing form than in any other available period of the 29 years. He said yes. He said that the 2 years were the evidence of the before version in the complete available form. In the available conditions that had supported the complete form, she said yes. She said that the Daniel leaving had been the leaving that had been the most significant available cost to the most available form of the before version, because the Daniel leaving had been the leaving that had happened when the careful distance form had been less the managing form and the before version had been more in the complete form. And the leaving happening when the before version was more in the complete form was the specific form of the leaving that had the most significant available cost to the interior. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine understanding of the actual content. The understanding that was not the sympathetic management of the significant disclosure, but the genuine understanding of the specific available quality of the Daniel leaving that was different from the other available leavings in the specific quality that she had just named. He said in the minimum available words of the truest available thing, that the cost of the Daniel leaving in that form was itself the most specific available evidence of the complete form of the before version in the 2 years, and that the complete form of the before version in the 2 years was itself the most specific available evidence of the quality of the person that was available when the before version was in the complete form. She received this with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most accurate available external description of the most significant available interior experience. She said in the before version's direct, honest form for the available question that she wanted to ask him something. He said yes in the form of the complete, genuine availability. She said that she wanted to understand the specific quality of the 3 years of the Ward Callister morning visits in the form of the genuine asking rather than the managed form of the social. Inquiry. He said yes in the form of the complete, genuine availability for whatever the genuine asking was. She said in the before version's direct, honest form that the 3 years of the Ward Callister morning visits in the form of the always there had been the 3 years of the always there in the specific quality of the always there that was different from the sometimes there in the form that made her able to say the 6 words on the Thursday morning. He said yes. He said that was the accurate available description of what the 3 years of the Ward Callister morning visits had been. She said she wanted to know if the 3 years had been the deliberate form of the always there or the natural available form of the always there. He said in the minimum available words that the 3 years had been both the deliberate form and the natural available form simultaneously. Because the deliberate form and the natural available form were not the mutually exclusive forms, but the form that was available when the genuine thing was both genuinely there and genuinely chosen. And that the genuine thing being both genuinely there and genuinely chosen was the specific quality of the always there that was different from the sometimes there in the most fundamental available form. She received this with the hazel eyes and the complete quality of the before version receiving the most significant available statement about the most significant available distinction. She said in the before version's specific quick direct form that both genuinely there and genuinely chosen was a very specific available description of the always there. He said yes. She said it was the most accurate description she had heard of the thing that was the opposite of the pattern. He said yes. He said it was the thing that was the opposite of the pattern. The November Saturday afternoon was the afternoon. The genuine thing was building. In the grain of the November, in the form of the before version returning in the complete available degree. And December was the available next. December arrived in Dristone Creek with the honest cold of the Kansas Territory, serious prairie winter. The cold that was the serious winter in the committed available form, and that required the real fire and the real preparation, and the genuine quality of the daily engagement with the available conditions rather than the managed quality of the adequate engagement. The farm work was the deep winter maintenance work, and the daily requirements had the quality of the genuine demands of the serious country in the committed season. Sera was doing the December farm work with the quality that had been building since the Thursday morning, and that was in December, the quality of the before version having more interior access than it had had in any of the 3 available years. The quality of the genuine building having arrived at the form that was the December form of the genuine building. She was in the December mornings with the before version in the complete available form in the specific context of the December mornings at the kitchen table with the coffee and the always there and the large calloused hands around the coffee cup across from the hazel ones around the coffee cup. And the before version in the complete available form in that specific context was the most complete available degree of the before version's availability in the 3 years and then some period. She was aware of the complete available degree of the before version's availability in December in the honest aware form of someone who was in the patient, honest sitting with of the most significant available interior subject and who was aware of the most significant available interior event of the period as the most significant available interior event in the honest receiving rather than the managed receiving. He came every morning in December in the natural available form of the always there, and the December mornings had the quality of the before version in the complete available degree in the specific context of the always there being the always there in the December form. The December mornings were the most complete available form of the 3 years and then some of the morning pattern. The form that had the genuine building's completion in it in the grain rather than on the surface. She told him the complete available things in December that the November had been building toward the telling of. The complete available things were the things that were available when the interior architecture of the careful distance had been modified to the degree that the December had modified it, which was the degree of the before version having the complete interior access in the form that the complete interior access took in December after the Thursday morning, and the 4 names and the I intend to keep staying, and all the available forms of the genuine building since. She told him about the specific quality of the careful distance interior architecture in the form of the before version's honest direct account of the actual interior experience rather than the managed version. And he received it with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving of the actual interior experience in the form of the person rather than the category. The dark moment arrived on a Wednesday evening in the 3rd week of December when she was at the kitchen table alone with the December Kansas Territory outside the window and the real fire in the hearth and the lamp on the table and the interior doing the honest work of the most significant available interior subject in the patient honest form of the genuine interior work. The dark was not the dark of the doubt about the genuine thing. The dark hazel eyes and the 3 years of the always there and the I intend to keep staying in the minimum available words had produced the specific available picture of the genuine thing in the complete honest form that the 3 years of the right kind of attention had produced. And the complete honest picture was the picture of the genuine thing rather than the impression of the genuine thing. The dark was the specific dark that was the honest form of the before version understanding, what the before version being available in the complete form again meant, which was the understanding that the before version being available in the complete form was the before version being available for the leaving in the most complete available form of the cost. And that the most complete available form of the cost was the cost that the careful distance interior architecture had been organized around preventing through the sustainable distance form rather than the complete form. The dark was the honest available form of the person who had been carrying the pattern of the available years and who understood what the complete form of the before version being available again made, available in the interior. She sat with the dark in the Wednesday evening In the patient, honest form of the complete, honest sitting with, that was her form for the most significant available interior subjects. Sitting with it without the managing toward the comfortable available interpretation, and without the managing away from the genuine dark, simply in the honest sitting with of the most significant available interior subject in the complete available form. What the complete honest sitting with produced across the Wednesday evening was the specific available understanding of the dark. The understanding that the dark was organized around the pattern rather than around the available present. That the dark was the specific fear of the before version's specific vulnerability to the leaving in the most complete available form rather than the evidence of the available present specific danger. The dark was the honest available form of the before version understanding the actual available cost of the complete form. And the understanding of the actual available cost was the honest available thing rather than the managed thing. She sat with it until the sitting with had produced the complete form of the understanding, and the complete form of the understanding had produced the specific available next thing, which was the going to him in the morning, and the saying of the honest available thing about the Wednesday evening dark in the direct honest form rather than the continued interior sitting with without the external saying. She went to the Callister spread on the Thursday morning in the form of the before version, going to the specific person for the specific reason. Was the going to the person who had said I intend to keep staying in the minimum available words, and who was therefore the specific available person for the honest saying of the Wednesday evening dark. He was at the Callister spread's workyard when she arrived, and he looked up with the dark hazel eyes in the complete present quality and waited with the complete genuine availability for whatever the dark arriving was about. She came into the yard with the hazel eyes and the December Kansas Territory morning, and the form of the person who had done the complete honest sitting with of the Wednesday evening, and who was arriving at the specific destination with the genuine interior present rather than the managed form. She said she wanted to say the thing the Wednesday evening had produced. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability, and he was in the deliberate stillness of the large calloused hands at his sides, in the quality that was the quality of the complete present for the significant available thing. She said in the before version's honest direct form that the Wednesday evening had produced the dark. She said the dark in the form of the honest saying of the dark in the specific quality of the dark that it was, which was the specific fear of the before version being available in the complete form, and what the complete form of the before version being available made available in the interior for the leaving to cost in the most complete available form. She said it with the hazel eyes, and the before version's honest, direct form, and the quality of the person who was saying the most significant available interior thing in the most honest available form. He received the dark with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving of the most significant available interior communication. The receiving that was not the sympathetic management of the significant disclosure, but the actual genuine reception of the actual content. He was quiet for the honest length of time of the complete genuine receiving, and then he said, the thing that was the most honest available response to the most honest available communication. He said that the dark was the honest available form of the before version understanding, what the before version being available in the complete form made available. And that the honest form of the understanding was the most significant available evidence that the before version was in the complete form rather than the managed form. Because only the before version in the complete form could produce the honest form of the understanding of the dark, rather than the managed form of the adequate acknowledgement of the dark. He said it in the minimum available words of the truest available thing, and she received it with the hazel eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most accurate available external description of the most significant available interior experience. She said, in the before version's direct honest form, that the understanding of the dark and the choosing of the complete form anyway were different available things, and that the choosing of the complete form anyway was the available thing she had not yet arrived at in the Wednesday. Sitting with the... He said yes. He said he knew. He said that the arriving at the choosing of the complete form anyway was the arriving that took the specific available time that it took, and that the choosing of the complete form anyway was not available through the arrangement of the choosing, but through the honest sitting with, arriving at the complete form of the understanding that produced the choosing as the available next thing. She said in the before version's direct form that she was telling him about the dark because the telling of the dark was itself the beginning of the choosing of the complete form anyway. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth in them, and the warmth was the warmth of the genuine thing, receiving the genuine thing in the most complete available form of the genuine perception. She said in the before version's honest direct form for the most direct available thing that she had been in love with him since approximately the first week of November. She said it with the hazel eyes entirely open in the before version's complete available form and the honest direct form of the before version's most significant available direct communication. He received it with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth of the genuine thing, receiving the most significant available communication in the complete genuine form. He said, in the minimum available words of the truest available response, that he had been in love with her since the second month after Daniel died, when he had first understood from the quality of the careful distance interior architecture in the available external evidence what the careful distance interior architecture was the architecture of, and that the understanding of what the careful distance interior architecture was, the architecture of, had produced the specific available form of the genuine thing that was the genuine thing in the form that was organized entirely around the actual interior, rather than the social form of the interest in the available exterior. She received this with the hazel eyes and the complete quality of the before version, receiving the most significant available statement of the most significant available interior fact. The December Thursday morning was the December Thursday morning. The choosing of the complete form anyway was the available next thing. And neither of them required anything from the available moment except the moment being what it was, which was the most significant available moment of the 3 years and the December. She went back to the Calloway farm from the Callister spread on the December Thursday morning with the specific interior quality of someone who had done the most significant available interior exchange of the 3 years and then some, and who was in the genuine aftermath rather than the managed form of the aftermath. The form of the before version entirely present in the interior, in the full available degree of the complete form, rather than the sustainable distance form. The Kansas Territory December was around her on the walk back, and the serious winter was the available world in the form of the honest serious winter that was simply what it was, and she was in it in the form of the before version in the complete form rather than the sustainable distance form. She thought about the saying of the "I have been in love with him" since approximately the first week of November. The saying of it had been the before version's direct honest form for the most significant available communication, and the saying had been in that form because the before version was in the complete form, and the complete form was the form that produced the saying in the honest direct form rather than the managed form. The saying of the "I have been in love with him" was the choosing of the complete form anyway, that she had told him was the beginning of the choosing. And the choosing of the complete form anyway was the specific available thing that the Wednesday sitting with had been building toward, and that the December Thursday morning had been the morning of. He had said the second month after Daniel died. She held this in the interior, in the form of the complete patient receiving of the most significant available received thing. The receiving that was the before version having the complete interior access for the complete receiving of the thing that had just been given. The second month after Daniel died was the specific available duration of the 3 years and then some, in the form of the genuine thing having been the available interior fact from the second month. And the second month to the December Thursday morning was the duration of the complete patient genuine thing, in the form of the complete patient genuine thing that waited for the appropriate available moment rather than the arranged available moment. January arrived in Dristone Creek with the committed form of the Kansas Territory serious prairie winter, the form that was the serious winter entirely itself in the most available honest form. The farm work was the deep winter maintenance work, and the daily requirements had the quality of the genuine demands of the serious country in the deep winter season. Sera was doing the January farm work with the quality that was the most complete available form of the quality in the 3 years and then some period. The quality of the before version entirely present in the interior in the complete available degree of the choosing the complete form anyway, rather than the sustainable distance form. He came every morning in January in the natural available form of the always there and the permanent available form. The always there, that was the always there in the form of the genuine choosing of the complete form, rather than the provisional form of the not yet leaving. The January mornings had the quality of the genuine thing in the permanent available form, and the kitchen was the kitchen in the form of the two-cup pot in the permanent available form, and the large calloused hands around the coffee cup across from the hazel, hands around the coffee cup were the permanent available form of the complete genuine thing. She told him things in January that the December and the before had been building toward the telling of in the complete available form. She told him about the specific quality of the interior architecture of the careful distance in the complete honest account of the before version having the interior access for the complete honest account. The account that was the specific available evidence of the complete form of the before version having the complete interior access in the January form. He received the complete honest account of the careful distance with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, in the form of the person rather than the category. She said the thing about the staying on the second Saturday of January at the kitchen table with the January Kansas territory outside the window and the real fire in the hearth and the coffee between than the two-cup form. She said in the before version's honest direct form for the most significant available communication, that she wanted to say the thing about the staying in the complete available form rather than the 6 words form of the Thursday morning. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that the staying was the specific available thing that was the most available form of the opposite of the pattern of the available years, and that the opposite of the pattern of the available years was the most significant available thing in the available world, in the specific way that the thing you had not been able to find across the sufficient available years was the most significant available thing when it was the available present thing. She said the mother had not stayed, and the father had not stayed, and Clara had not stayed, and Daniel had not stayed. Not because any of them were the leaving kind, but because the available world had taken them in the forms it took them in. And the not staying had been the pattern, and the pattern had been the available reality, and the available reality had produced the interior architecture of the careful distance as the most intelligent available response to the available reality. He received all of this with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and he was quiet for the honest length of time of the complete genuine receiving. She said that when she said he was the only one who stayed, she was not saying it in the form of the comparison with the ones who had not stayed. Because the comparison with the ones who had not stayed was not the form that was the honest form. She was saying it in the form of the absolute available fact of what the staying was in itself. The staying that was the genuine thing that had been building across the 3 years and then some in the grain of the available daily mornings, and the south fence work, and the practical provision, and the 6 words on the Thursday morning, and the I intend to keep staying in the minimum available words in all the available forms of the always there. He said, in the minimum available words of the truest available thing, that the staying was the available form that was organized entirely around the actual person rather than the available circumstances of the actual person, and that the staying that was organized entirely around the actual person rather than the available circumstances of the actual person was the staying that was worth the name because it was the staying that would be the staying in all the available circumstances rather than only the comfortable available circumstances. She received this with the hazel eyes and the complete quality of the before version, receiving the most accurate available description of the most significant available quality of the genuine staying. She said in the honest, direct form that she had understood since the Thursday morning that the Ward Callister form of the always there was the form of the genuine staying rather than the not yet leaving, and that the understanding had been the most significant available interior modification of the 3 years and then some period, because the understanding of the genuine staying in the genuine form was the understanding that made the choosing of the complete form anyway the available thing rather than the unavailable thing. He said yes. He said he knew. She said, how did he know? He said, in the minimum available words, that the choosing of the complete form anyway was the available thing in the December Thursday morning form, and that the December Thursday morning form was the form of the before version in the complete available degree, and that the before version in the complete available degree was the form that was available when the understanding of the genuine staying was the available understanding. She looked at him across the January kitchen table with the hazel eyes in the complete available form of the before version, entirely present in the interior, and she said, in the before version's honest, direct form for the most direct available thing, that she wanted to ask him something. He said yes, in the form of the complete, genuine availability. She said, in the before version's direct, honest form, that she wanted to understand what the Ward Callister form of the staying looked like in the permanent available form. The permanent form that was different from the 3 years and then some form, in the specific way that the permanent form was different from the provisional form. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth in them, and he said in the minimum available words that the permanent form of the staying was the form that required the asking of the specific available question that the permanent form required the asking of before it was the available form. She said she understood, and she said yes. He said in the minimum available words of the most significant available asking that he wanted to ask her to build the thing that the Thursday morning and the 4 names and the I intend to keep staying and all the available forms of the genuine building had been building toward. The thing that was the permanent available form of the genuine thing rather than the adjacent available form. He said he wanted the kitchen to be the kitchen in the permanent form rather than the visiting form. He said he wanted the 2-cup pot to be the permanent available form rather than the pattern of the visits form. He said he wanted to ask her to marry him. She looked at him with the hazel eyes and the complete available form of the before version entirely present in the interior, at the most significant available moment of the 3 years and then some. And then some. She said yes. She said it in the minimum available word of the before version's most complete, honest, direct response to the most complete, honest, direct asking. And the minimum available word in the before version's complete available form carried the full weight of the genuine thing without the performance and without the management and without the careful distance. He took her hands in both of his large calloused hands in the form that was the natural available form of the genuine thing received in the genuine form. And the warmth of the large calloused hands was the warmth of the always there in the permanent available form rather than the visiting form. She said in the before version's direct, honest form that the permanent form of the staying was a very specific available form of the most significant available thing. He said yes. He said it was. She said in the before version's specific, quick, direct form that the 2-cup pot had been the permanent form since the 2nd month after Daniel died, and that the renaming of it was available at any time. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the warmth of the genuine reception of the before version's specific, quick, direct humor, and she received his reception with the hazel ones in the form of the before version's complete available humor in the complete available form. The January kitchen was the kitchen. The genuine thing was in the permanent available form. And the staying was the staying in the most complete available form, which was the form that it had always been. Since the 2nd month. In the grain. In the always there. In the form that did not require the announcement because the not requiring of the announcement was itself the most complete available form of the communication of the staying. February arrived in Dristone Creek with the specific quality of the Kansas Territory serious prairie winter in the form that February took when the most committed available form of the serious winter had been the available form long enough that the grain of the available form of the serious winter had been the available form long enough that the grain of the available conditions contained the beginning of the change that was not yet visible on the surface. The change that was the serious prairie country in the form of the becoming, rather than the being of the most serious available form. Sera was doing the February farm work with the quality that was the most complete available form of the quality in the 3 years and then some and then the January period. The quality of the before version entirely present in the interior, in the complete available degree of the permanent form rather than the careful distance form or the sustainable distance form or any of the managed forms that the interior architecture of the careful distance had been the available form of. He came every morning in February in the natural available form of the permanent available form that the January Saturday kitchen table had established as the available form. As the February mornings had the quality of the permanent available form in the natural available daily form of the genuine thing, rather than the arranged occasion of the genuine thing. The kitchen was the kitchen in the permanent form, and the 2-cup pot was the 2-cup pot in the permanent form, and the large calloused hands around the coffee cup across from the hazel ones around. The coffee cup were the permanent form in the natural available daily quality of the permanent form. She was in the full reserve in February, in the degree that the full reserve was available when the genuine thing was the permanent available form of the daily life and the careful distance interior. But architecture was not the managing form of the available daily life. The full reserve being available in the full available degree was producing the before version in the full available degree of the complete form. And the before version in the complete form was producing the specific available forms of the before version's return in the grain of the February daily life that the genuine modifications produced when they were the genuine kind. She told him, on the second Thursday of February at the kitchen table with the coffee in the two-cup form and the February Kansas territory outside the window, that she wanted to say the thing she had been in the patient honest sitting with of since the January Saturday kitchen table. He said yes, in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that the staying in the permanent available form was the most significant available modification of the available interior architecture in the 3 years and then some and then the subsequent period. That the most significant available modification of the available interior architecture was the modification that she had not understood was the available modification until the staying had been the staying in the permanent available form long enough to have produced the interior evidence of the modification in the complete honest form. He received this with the dark hazel eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving. She said that the interior evidence of the modification was the specific available evidence of the careful distance interior architecture being less the managing form than it had been in the 3 years before the Thursday morning. And that the less the managing form was the modification in the grain of the available daily life, in the form that the genuine modifications were available in the grain. And that the evidence in the grain was the most significant available evidence, because the evidence in the grain was the evidence of the genuine modification rather than the managed modification. He said in the minimum available words, that the evidence in the grain was the evidence of the genuine modification because the grain was the place where the genuine things happened before they were visible on the surface, and that the genuine things happening in the grain before they were visible on the surface was the most honest available form of the genuine things because they were happening before the management of the impression of the happening was the available form. She said yes, and she said that was the most accurate available description of the specific quality of the genuine modification in the grain. There is a lesson in Sera Calloway's story, not the surface lesson about the woman who said 6 words quietly over a coffee cup, and the man who set down his cup and looked at her. That is the form the lesson takes in this particular story, and it is a genuine and a beautiful available form. The actual lesson is the thing in the grain rather than on the surface, the thing that requires the patient honest sitting with before the seeing of it is available in the complete honest form. The lesson is about the staying, not the staying in the dramatic form of the announced staying or the performed staying or the staying that was organized around the impression of the staying. The staying in the specific available form that was the most honest form. The form that was the always there in the grain of the available daily life rather than the always there on the surface of the available significant occasions. The staying that did not require the announcement because the not requiring of the announcement was itself the most complete available form of the communication of the staying. You may have learned the interior architecture of the careful distance. The interior architecture of the careful distance was the most intelligent available response to the pattern of the available years in the specific available form that your pattern took. And the intelligence of the response was the intelligence of the person who organized the interior around the actual available reality rather than the managed impression of the interior that was more comfortable for the available outside. The careful distance was not the failure of the genuine interior. The careful distance was the genuine interior in the sustainable form rather than the complete form. The form that was organized around the surviving of the leaving rather than the avoiding of the feeling. And the surviving of the leaving was the form that the genuine interior produced when the leaving had been the pattern. You are not required to maintain the careful distance as the permanent available form. The careful distance was the available form for the period that the careful distance was the available form for. And the period of the careful distance does not have to be the permanent available period. The permanent available period is the period that begins when the staying is the available form. And the staying is the available form when the right person is the available person. And the right person is the person who is the always there in the grain of the available daily mornings, and the practical provision and the south fence work and the coffee in the 2-cup form. The 6 words. You deserve the moment of the 6 words, not the performing of the 6 words or the arranging of the 6 words for the significant occasion. The quiet saying of the 6 words over the coffee cup in the form that is the before version's most honest, direct form available in the specific context of the morning, that is the right morning. The 6 words that say the truest available thing about the most significant available interior fact to the person who has earned the receiving of them through the always there in the grain across the sufficient available time. You are the only one who stays. When you can say that, you have found the right person. And when you find the right person, the before version comes back. In the form of the cooking and the genuine humor and the complete interior access and the choosing the complete form anyway. In the grain. In the November and the December and the January and the February. In the form that the genuine things returned in, when the genuine conditions were the available conditions. The careful distance was the architecture of someone who had learned to survive the leaving. The staying is the architecture of someone who does not have to survive it anymore. You deserve the staying. You always did. The mother and the father and Clara and Daniel were the leavings that were real and that cost what they cost, and that are carried in the genuine form of the genuine cost in the interior, in the honest form that they deserve to be carried in. The carrying of them in the honest form is the most significant available evidence of the quality of the interior that is carrying them, which is the quality of the person who does not manage the genuine cost away and who is therefore in possession of the genuine interior in the complete available form. The person who sets down the coffee cup when you say the true thing is the person who is entirely where they are, not elsewhere while appearing to be here, entirely here. In the complete quality of the present, in the form of the dark hazel eyes doing the most complete available work of the dark hazel eyes at the specific available moment when the most complete available work is the required form. You deserve the person who is entirely where they are. You deserve the minimum available words for the maximum available content. You deserve the I intend to keep staying. And the staying every morning in the 2-cup form. May you find the strength to heal and the hope of a new dawn. Thank you for being here with us on Cowboy Ironheart tonight. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes using AI tools. All characters, places, and events are entirely the products of the imagination, and any resemblance to actual persons or events is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved by Cowboy Ironheart.